Hello and welcome again to FairTax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
And we are the FairTax Guys. Again, on the scrap heap of history so that it will never bother anybody again.
That's right, because if you don't have an income tax, you won't need the IRS, and that's what the FairTax is all about. Get rid of the income tax and all the tremendous problems with it, and the IRS that ignores the Bill of Rights, get rid of both of them, replace it with a very simple sales tax, like many of the states have, and life will be a lot better for all of us.
Yes, wonderful idea. So if you'd like to get in touch with us, thefairtaxguys@gmail.com is our email address. We have a Facebook page, and we'll be doing another Facebook Live event before too much longer, hopefully. Those are fun.
Yeah. And, we see a boost in the participation on our Facebook page. I think people really like the Facebook Live. I know I enjoy the heck out of it.
Oh, yeah. You sit there and you kind of think you've got a game plan, stuff you want to talk about, and then people write in some questions. Of course, this is interactive. You can comment on it as the thing's going on. If you miss it, then it's still on the page later that you can watch. But it's fun to watch the interaction and have that live interaction. That's the one thing I miss about being on live radio versus this podcast is the real-time interaction with folks that are calling up and asking us things, and we can do that on the Facebook Live.
Yeah, it keeps you on your toes, and
stay tuned here, and we'll let you know when the next one is.
Yep, that video stays on our Facebook page. It's had over 4,000 views.
Well, good. If every one of those is somebody that's showing up at a town hall and pressuring a Congress critter, that's good.
Yes, we're gonna talk about that in the next episode, but today.
Okay, we're going to kind of continue something we did a couple of weeks ago here on FairTax Power Radio that turned out to be really popular and a really good idea. And again, we've been promoting that people go to the website fairtax.org, www.fairtax.org. That is the homepage, that's the website of the Americans for Fair Taxation organization, the national grassroots movement behind the fair tax. And they have got an FAQ, frequently asked questions that people ask about the fair tax. So with appropriate credit to them, we're going through this FAQ and picking out some of the more interesting questions that people ask and hopefully getting into a little bit more detail on what some of the answers are.
Well, it's a great way to explain the different features of the fair tax by responding to people's questions. It's kind of like a non-live Facebook Live.
Well, that's close enough. Well, are you ready for the first one? I'm going to pitch them and you catch them here. Ready?
Okay, shoot.
Isn't the fair tax just another tax scheme?
Oh, and so the operative word...
Don't tell me that depends on the definition of the word scheme.
Well, that's interpreted a lot of different ways, but if you think a scheme is being not serious or has some nefarious plans behind it, whatever, scheme is kind of has a negative connotation.
I think of it either as an attempt to cheat somebody by giving some kind of dubious thing, or something that delivers the moon, like these get-rich-quick schemes, that delivers the moon and doesn't promise, or doesn't deliver.
Yeah, promises the moon.
Did I get that right?
And
promises the moon and delivers nothing.
And delivers sand.
I think I had that backwards, but that's all right.
Close enough.
Anyway, that's what but the fair tax is neither.
No, the fair tax is very serious legislation. It's been in Congress. It was first submitted in 1999, and as you know, Congress we have a new Congress every 2 years. It's been resubmitted every time, and it has over $20 million worth of research, of privately funded research. We are very serious about the fair tax. I mean, look at the people who have been involved, starting with the president of the Americans for Fair Taxation, Steve Hayes. He always introduces himself as a recovering tax attorney because that is his profession. He really is a tax attorney. And in the beginning of his career, helping people legally reduce their tax commitment, by legally avoiding taxes, he came to realize this system is rigged for the rich people, and it's not doing most of the people in America that much good. So he's very serious, and there's a lot of people. Bob and I are both on the board of directors for the Florida Fair Tax, and these are serious people. Yeah, they're all volunteers, and we don't get paid. We actually, we spend money on what we do, but we're very serious about this, and the fair tax is a very serious plan.
Yeah, now you want to talk about a scheme. That's just kind of an idea in the back of somebody's head that's really not in legislative language. Now, the FairTax, as you noted, has been a proposal, a bill. I mean, you could read about it on congress.gov, which we'll have to visit a bit later in the episode here. But you can read. It is a serious proposal because it is in legislative language. You get a lot of things that are just, pipe dreams in the back of somebody's head, like Paul Ryan's Better Way.
Yeah.
I don't believe that is a legislative proposal at this time. It's just a set of bullet points and talking points and goals they'd like to achieve and kind of baked ideas on how they're going to get there. Yep. But the FairTax is a serious proposal. It is actual legislative language, H.R. 25, and it's been H.R. 25 forever. And the Senate bill number changes from year to year. I think it's S18 at the moment here in the 115th Congress. And so those are actually, you can go on congress.gov, you can go on PopVox and read about those things and actually read them. So no, this isn't just some kind of, half-cocked scheme in the back of somebody's head. This is well-researched, $20 million worth of research, as you said. It's in legislative language. It's ready to go. And you cannot say that. No other tax reform proposal can say that.
No, that's true. That's true. I mean, I think there is a formal piece of legislative proposal for the flat tax, and the last I checked, it had maybe 1 or 0 co-sponsors. I mean, that's it is a proposal, but it's not a serious piece of legislation as far as everybody else. No, the FairTax has got hundreds of volunteers across the country working for it. We've got our leadership. We're all volunteer, by the way. That doesn't make us non-serious. That just means that we're all volunteer because we believe so deeply in this. But no, it's a very serious piece of legislation. It is not a scheme. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. And there's nothing really negative about it. Bob and I have been doing this podcast for a couple of years now. You can't find anything negative about the FairTax. It really does help everybody. It is a serious piece of legislation. Well, I take that back. It doesn't help the lobbyists. It doesn't help the mega corporations. And it doesn't help the Congress people.
Congress critters looking for campaign cash.
That's right. It doesn't help them. But as far as the rest of the Americans, yeah, it helps us.
All right, but you mentioned something a second ago that was a perfect lead into our next question. What about the flat tax? Wouldn't that be better and easier to pass? Well, I'll answer part and give you the short answer to that one. Easier to pass? Yeah. Better? No way.
No. For one thing, how long will it stay flat? My wife loves to ask people when they say, well, I'm really a flat tax proponent. And she says, oh, really? Well, that's interesting. Well, answer one question for me. How long will it stay flat? And they have that kind of twisted look on their face like, yeah, they realize that they can't answer that because they know it will not stay flat. Look at the major tax reform of 1986 when Reagan was the president. Major tax reform. They removed a lot of language, reduced the tax code down to 26,000 pages and so forth. And since then, it's almost tripled in size. And what was then a flat tax, they removed the 7 brackets down to 3. They reduced the rates. They did this. They took all kinds of stuff. And it's a mess. 30 years later, it's a complete mess. And the IRS is completely out of control. So, yeah. Flat tax, it's not going to stay flat.
Yeah, a lot of people will mention flat tax and fair tax in the same breath as if they're, corporate cousins or something, very similar proposals. They are different as night and day. Again, the flat tax is an income tax.
That's right.
It is just monkeying around with the edges. It is not changing the fundamentals that underlie the income tax system that we've got now. You're still going to have the IRS.
Yep.
You're still going to have tax brackets. You're still going to have tax returns. You're still going to have tax audits. You're still going to have all the stuff that's wrong with the income tax with the flat tax because the flat tax is an income tax.
And the worst part of it is that you still have something that Congress can monkey around with. Mm-hmm. All right? They love the idea. And the lobbyists love the idea of a flat tax. They get to start all over again. They earn a lot of money by promoting different features, of different ways of changing the tax, making it more complicated. And, Congress people, a lot of them step up, to the plate there because it means campaign cash. And, once these folks retire from Congress, they keep the campaign cash.
Oh, yes, they do.
Yeah.
So as you mentioned, a flat tax will not stay flat. Congress cannot resist monkeying with it.
Yeah.
It is still an income tax. It retains the IRS, which is, we've been, all the abuses that the IRS heap upon the tax-paying public. We've gone to that quite a bit here on the tax return state. Now, they say you'll be able to file your income taxes on a postcard.
Yeah, how long will that last?
Well, probably not long. But again, even if you can file your income taxes on a postcard, you still have to do all the record keeping so that you fill in the blanks right.
Yeah.
You still have it may not be quite as difficult to comply with, but you're still going to have considerable compliance costs because it is still an income tax that you have to report and fill in the forms, and it's still, the government sticking its nose into your personal financial business. And all of that goes away with a fair tax. You pay the fair tax anonymously at the cash register when you buy things, period, end of story.
Yeah. And with a flat tax, all right, it will simplify things for an individual, but businesses, especially if you're running a small business, we talked about this asset forfeiture, civil asset forfeiture. Well, the IRS is still out there. If you're doing something as a small business and the IRS raises their eyebrow, they just come in and boom, they seize your bank account because they think you may be doing something. They don't accuse you of anything. They don't talk to you about it. They just seize your bank account and let you know afterwards, all right? That kind of nonsense stays with a flat tax. You still have the IRS. You still have the IRS ignoring the Bill of Rights. So flat tax is not the answer. It will very quickly unflatten and become what we have today. So flat tax is not the way to go. It is a temporary fix and very temporary.
All right, well, moving on here. Can an economy of any size actually function without an income tax? Are there any economies anywhere that are flourishing without an income tax?
I don't see how you can have a government in which people demands a number of services, especially, Americans, you might say, are kind of hooked on Social Security and Medicare. And how do you maintain a military? How do you have programs like Social Security and Medicare? All right, these seem to be popular programs. How do you have a Bureau of Weights and Standards? Because it's important to have the same system of weights and standards across a huge country like ours. So how do you run a federal government without some kind of a taxation?
All right, but I don't think an economy can work without an income tax. Are there any economies anywhere in the world that are surviving or thriving without an income tax? And I can think of two, Florida and Texas.
Oh, yeah, without an if you're talking about
that's where I was going with that question.
Yeah, okay, I misdirected it there. But, because I thought Bob was talking about there are some people that say, well, we shouldn't have any taxes at all. We shouldn't have any taxes.
We had an engagement with somebody on Facebook the other day who says that taxation is theft and, the government shouldn't be stealing any of my money for any reason. And we said, well, then you're just asking for a free ride because there are services that we as a society have to pay for. Taxation is the way to do it. So how do you distribute the costs of the services that people need, like police protection and like military protection and stuff, fairly across the entire population?
Whether it's local, state, or federal. I mean, if you've ever driven on the interstate highway.
But if there's anybody that says you have to have an income tax to support a large-scale economy, you can tell them that's not true. We have proven, Florida and Texas, the biggest examples, have proven that is just not true, because Florida's got a pretty good-sized economy.
And in fact, they really support the idea that a sales tax is far superior to an income tax. Because, and I would throw Tennessee in there too, because remember that email we got from that fellow named Brian?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And same thing, Florida, Texas, Tennessee, and I know there's 6 others, but I can't bring them to mind right now. These states have a sales tax and not an income tax, and they're doing very well.
And I'll point to Georgia, who is considering abolishing their state income tax in favor of a FairTax style consumption tax.
That's going to be something to watch, because it has already passed this bill to make Georgia a FairTax state. And like Bob said, it would get rid of their income tax. They currently have an income tax. Get rid of their income tax, replace it with a sales tax, and it includes a prebate.
If they do that, I may have to move to Folkestone.
So it's passed their House. It's in the Senate now in Georgia. this is going to be something to watch. We really need to keep our eye open for this one, because this is like the incubator of tax reform around, for the whole federal government.
And isn't that the way the founding fathers, envisioned the whole country? That the states would be kind of, experimental things, and one state can try something and another state can try something else.
Yeah.
And we take the best practices as implemented on the state level and move them up. But yeah, this would work really well. Isn't Alabama doing the same thing?
Alabama is they're a little farther behind Georgia, but they are trying the same thing. They currently have an income tax, and they've got proposals to get rid of the income tax, replace it with a sales tax and a prebate, I believe. So yeah, Georgia and Alabama. Georgia is a little farther ahead than Alabama. So this is important to keep watch.
So yes, the answer is an economy of a good size can work without an income tax.
Absolutely.
And there are, I think Georgia and Alabama, they got pretty good economies as well. Bigger than some countries on the face of the earth.
That's true.
And they are seeing that income tax is stifling economic growth. There's nothing good about it. It's invasive. It's abusive. It's unfair.
Yeah.
And they're going to get rid of the thing and just make a sales tax out of it. Let me move on to the next question. What about illegal immigration? Now, that is another political issue, kind of a hot button for a lot of people. And we're not going to get too much into that because that's really not our bailiwick. But the fair tax will have some effect on illegal immigration.
Yeah. I've said it before, almost 100 years ago, that my parents came to this country and they always called it the old country. Whenever they talked about it, in the old country we did this. But they came here in the 1920 and 1921 and quickly assimilated and became American citizens as soon as they could. All right. So for the people who don't want to do that, they want to come here illegally, but they immediately want to start drawing the benefits of living in our society.
Mm-hmm. But they are not touched by the tax system in a lot of cases. They'll ship their money home, but they still buy things.
They either don't report their income, or maybe they don't have income because they go on public assistance, whatever. But then they draw the benefits. They expect to draw the benefits. Well, with the fair tax, that kind of reverses things, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, I'll tell you what, we've mentioned earlier, you've hit on the prebate a couple of times, which is the tax refund that you get on taxes that you pay at the register that you don't owe, because under the fair tax, you don't owe a dime until your spending rises above the poverty level. But that prebate is only given to legal citizens. You've got to supply a legal, valid Social Security number for that to work. So the fair tax system will start collecting money from illegal immigrants that they're not paying now.
That's right, because like Bob said, they have to buy groceries, and they'll probably buy TVs and clothes and stuff like that. So they will not get illegal immigrants, who are not here legally, will not get the prebate, but they will pay the fair tax. So that's going to start reversing the illegal immigration trend. All right. Because they're going to help pay for what goes on in the country, but they're not going to get that prebate thing. And they might find themselves, if I become a legal immigrant, then I can start collecting that prebate. Now, whether or not they get, welfare benefits or whatever, that's another subject. That is on the expenditure side of the federal government or even the state government. The fair tax is a revenue issue, and we don't get into these other discussions because it just dilutes the argument. But, the fair tax, I think, is going to have a positive effect on the negative of illegal immigration.
All right. Next question for you. Can the states really collect a federal tax?
They do now, right? Whenever you go and fill up your car, they're collecting federal tax, a federal excise tax. Why not? That's not a problem. It's all done by computers. It's not like people are writing out paper ledgers, to include the taxes. It's all done by computers now. It's very simple. And Bob was a computer programmer.
Yeah, there are very few states that don't have a sales tax.
Yeah.
Which means that the big software vendors that write your point of sale software, they all know how to deal with a sales tax. No problem at all. And adding the fair tax to a point of sale, which is where it's going to be collected.
Yeah.
from my knowledge as a computer programmer, that's pretty easy to do.
That's right. And, you know, I saw something, I'm not sure where I saw this. It might have been in that evasion study. But there are, as Bob said, there are 45 states that have a state sales tax. So that means there's 5 states that don't. However, those 45 states, they encompass 98% of the population of this country. So the vast majority of people in this country have a state sales tax. And it's not a big deal for them. Do we see stories in the newspaper about the onerous state sales tax? You know, once in a while, like in our county, they just raised it because they wanted some money for, you know, for some special things going on. And my point was, better a sales tax than an income tax or a property tax.
But even in those states that don't have a sales tax, they still have Walmarts, they still have Targets, they still have these big box stores, all of which are set up on a national level to collect a sales tax. They just don't happen to do it in those states, but they've got the capability to do it. Their software is already there because they're using it everywhere else.
Yep.
And it would be nothing, absolutely nothing, for the fair tax to be implemented in that manner.
Consider that, you know, implementing a nationwide sales tax to the IRS with an operating budget of what, 10 or 11 billion dollars and 100,000 employees. The IRS will be phased out with the fair tax, and what's required to collect this national sales tax? Well, the vendor collects it, and then once a month or periodically, the vendor sends it to their state, and it is the state that collects it, and then the state, puts it in an account, and they send it up to the U.S. Treasury. And again, it's all done by computers. It's not a big deal. Now, if a state thinks that a vendor is not doing something properly, then they will send agents to go check that out. But consider that there's about 20 million businesses in the country, as opposed to 140 million individual taxpayers.
Yeah, and they're going to go after the vendor, not the individual people that are paying the tax if the vendor is not remitting it properly.
So it's much easier to keep up with and enforce. Evasion rate of a sales tax is much, much lower than the evasion rate of the current income tax, which is extremely high. So there's so many positive things to the fair tax. It will be easy to collect because we have the infrastructure already in place, as Bob says.
Okay, I think we've got time for one more question here. What happens, look into your crystal ball here, and tell me what happens to charitable giving if the fair tax becomes law?
Well, first, and I know this is easy to say,
because there's no deduction for it anymore.
That's right. And some people try to make the case that, if there's no deduction, people won't give to charities. People don't give to charities because they get a deduction. People give to charities because they care about the charity, the organization, or the program, all right? Plus, 70% of the people who file an income tax use the short form. They don't itemize. So you got 70% of the people that don't get a charitable deduction.
Yeah, they can give a lot, but the standard deduction is still more because not everybody has millions of dollars to give to charity.
So the effect on charitable organizations is going to be negligible.
Yeah, well, let me ask you this. What is the single most important factor that determines charitable giving? It's not tax policy, it's the overall health of the economy.
Yeah, that's right.
So
you're absolutely right.
If you make the economy healthier, there will be more money floating around to give to charity, and that will help them immensely.
That's right. If your family has more discretionary funds, and you've bought your big screen TV and maybe your new car or whatever, you've taken some vacations and so forth, and you feel there's a very worthy cause out there, and they tug at your heartstrings, you'll be given to those charities because the economy is better and everybody's better off. And that's what the fair tax does. The fair tax boosts the economy. It takes the onerous effects of the income tax away. Makes it easier for businesses to do business. Yeah. They hire more people. More people have money to spend.
Yeah, it drops the corporate income tax rate to zero because it gets rid of all income taxes. And can you imagine the multinational corporations that will be flocking here and bringing their jobs with them?
Absolutely.
If we being the United States of America, becomes the most business-friendly, environment on the planet. Mm-hmm. That has already been studied and checked out, and yes, that will bring millions. FairTax is the best jobs bill you could possibly come up with.
Yeah, it's going to be good, but that's very true. All right, so how do we get this to happen, Bob?
Oh, well, let's see. First thing you need to do is to go to the fairtax.org website that we were talking about, and we're taking these things from, or you can go to bigsolution.org as well. Now, solution singular, no S there. Yeah. That's where you actually sign up to get involved with it. But the way you make this happen is, you get involved with the movement here. You put your name on the roll of AFFT. You can become a member of AFFT and or your state organization, practically for just whatever you want to give. There's no set membership dues. You can come in at whatever membership level you'd like. So we need a little bit of your money. We need you to be counted so that when we go up there to the Congress critters and say, all right, we want the FairTax. All right, how many people do you represent?
Yeah.
When the NRA speaks, the Congress listens simply because they've got such a vast membership. And if we can build up the same kind of numbers or even half the numbers that they've got, then we will have the political clout we'll need to get through this. Because remember, the Congress critters don't want this. They have written the current system to their benefit. They will keep it to their benefit to the greatest extent that we, the people, allow them to get away with it. So we have got to have numbers. So join AFFT, join your state organization, and have at it.
Yeah, we've got to apply the heat. Now, I understand if, like with my own children, all right, they're busy working at their jobs or working at their businesses, they're raising kids and so forth. We've got a couple in college, we still got some in elementary school and so forth. They're very busy. They can't, I understand that time is precious for these folks, and they can't go out and be doing a lot of volunteer work like Bob and I do. We're retired. We can do this. That's fine. But you can support the organizations, the national organization, Americans for Fair Taxation at fairtax.org or bigsolution.org.
And we've mentioned this. We've mentioned this a lot too. Go ahead.
You can also, on fairtax.org, you can look up and see how to connect with your state organization, because most states have a fair tax organization, so you can get with them. And even if it's leaving a message on the outgoing message on your phone, contribute financially if you're able to, and you can pass out some palm cards or something like that.
Well, we've mentioned this a lot too, and to continue to encourage people to do it. Go to PopVox, POPVOX.
Right.
Register at PopVox, where you have to give them your address so they know what congressional district you live in. And once you are a registered user of PopVox, you can go in and comment on any pending legislation,
right,
fair tax included. And believe me, we talked to Congressman Yoho here, and he says that everybody up there has got staff that pays attention to that.
That's right.
So if you go up there, and you can double whammy those guys, you can go up there and speak in favor of the fair tax. Just look up HR 25 or S18 and tell them what's right about the fair tax. And you can also find some of these other proposals, and you can write notes and comments about them telling you why that's not a good idea.
That's right.
And Congress does pay attention. They really do.
Yep. So how much time we got there?
Oh, not a whole heck of a lot. So
I can't believe
you better mention your wife's webinar real quick, though.
Oh, yep. The webinar, the fourth Thursday of every month. This episode is going to be airing in September. We're trying to do things. We have to get things in advance a little bit because we're going to be doing some traveling. But the fourth Thursday of every month, you go to fairtax.org/webinar, sign up for it. It's free. It's absolutely free. And then a few minutes before the webinar starts at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the fourth Thursday, you just log into the link they send you, and boom. And it's a different subject every month.
All right.
And it's interactive.
Well, I don't want to cut you off, but we are out of time. I'm Bob Paxton.
Okay. I can't believe
Yes. One more time.
Already.
I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
We are the Fair Tax Guys, reminding you that the Fair Tax is America's big solution. And once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
Fair tax is coming. Don't